Well, welcome everyone to another big brain gameplay lecture playing XCOM 2 and talking about terrorism. Today's video we will be talking about force multipliers, the way that terrorist groups use things to make their impact greater than it ever can be. We're going to be talking about what are force multipliers and why terrorist groups have to use them. Some of the examples and methods that terrorist groups use to amplify their effect. And finally, we're going to have a brief discussion on gender and terrorism. So stick around. Let's get our class handed to us. Let us start with our first topic. It's going to take you 3 days to pick up supplies. What the fuck's wrong with you? All right, while this happens, force multipliers. What are they? When I say force multiplier, what do I mean? When I talk about force multiplication, or force multiplier, what I am talking about, and I'm going to give you a definition here, any method that increases the striking power of an organization or force without increasing the number of combat troops. In other words, anything that makes 10 men feel like 100. That's the way I like to put it anyways. What we can do now, by the way, this is actually a fun thing with the force multiplication, is we can take our rookies and we can train them to become whatever we want. We know what force multiplication is, force multipliers. But why do terrorist groups need to use them? Well, look at us, right? So far, everything that we've been doing has been obtaining supplies, okay? Because we were low on supplies, we needed to go acquire supplies, which means, and we're doing that because we're trying to recruit people and we're trying to, set up our base so that we can have striking power. Terrorist organizations, by their nature, fight asymmetrical wars, okay? That's essentially what terrorist attacks are. They're asymmetrical wars. We're trying to essentially get the most bang for our buck, right? We need to be cost effective in anything that we do. And the main purpose of everything we do is to send this message of chaos. That's what a terrorist organization is trying to do. Send a message that its enemies should be afraid of them. Hence, the term terror within terrorist or terrorism.
Of course! It was so obvious!
So terrorist groups need to be able to use what little resources that you have in order to make the biggest impact. All right. That's why force multipliers are useful, right? You have limited resources. What's the way that we can make our impact greater without actually needing to, field more troops or send in more supplies than is necessary? That's why force multiplication is needed for terrorist groups. Now that we know what force multiplication is and why terrorist groups use it, there are certain methods that terrorist groups use. And they come in 3 categories. The first being the technology that can be used. The second being the choice of target. And the third being psychological warfare. We are actually going to try and give an example within this mission, Operation Swamp Fort. I hate whoever names these operations. Operation, unfortunate name for it. Get out of my swamp, you damn kids.
Get out of my swamp, you kids!
What I mean by technology, right, is the stuff that you can use to attack. The choice of target is the type of target one type of target can have a greater impact over just like a regular military target. And then psychological warfare kind of plays into using all of that together. Use of the media, right, can also be part of that kind of psychological warfare as well. Certain types of tactics. So technology. What do I mean by technology? In reviewing our squad here, you'll notice that they all have, fairly large weapons, and we don't need 2 sniper. We're bringing Guile, because Guile's amazing. Guile is an amazing soldier, and we will always have him with us, and if we ever lose him, I will cry on stream. What we do need is a specialist. We have Richard Green. They always seem to get injured on me. I don't know why. This is the technology, right? How can we turn this squad into a hard-hitting force? Well, one of the ways you could do it is, by upgrading their weapons, by turning their weapons into, hard... So, Guile has an extended clip so that he can fire more shots, right? However, in the real world, the technology basically meant, the first force multiplier was gunpowder. Because what it enabled was those who wanted to make an impact to be able to have the devastating impact of an entire military attack, right? One person can take a load of gunpowder, pack it into a small package, light a fuse, and throw it. And we're, I guess, living in the modern world like grenades. It was like the ancient equivalent of grenades, but that shit was devastating once upon a time. And out of it propped up this idea of the philosophy of the bomb, which was the idea that explosives and violence was the best way to send a message.
Grenades.
However, nowadays, as we've gotten more advanced weaponry, is used as a force multiplier, right? This guy, Corporal Popova, right? I keep saying guy. It's a woman. Her name is Arena or something like that. That gun is essentially a heavyish machine gun that provides the firepower of like an entire platoon of people. That is a force multiplier in the modern day context. But then you also have chemical and biological weapons, nuclear weapons, which aren't necessarily as in play as maybe some people would think. But it is a method of force multiplication. Chemical and biological warfare, I mean, really, you can see the effects that would have by looking at the giant P word that we all have been living through for the past year and a half, right? A biological attack can result in something that we are all experiencing right now. And then cyber attacks, which is what this guy is all about with his little drone, right? He can go and he can hack and make, but in the real world, cyber attacks can shut down systems.
Pero hello, shut down.
They can compromise entire portions of our economy or portions of, the energy net. Technology is the first major force multiplier. Next part of the examples methods, right? Talk about technology, but then choice of target. Choice of target is important because certain targets can have a greater impact than others, right? We are going after a swamp, which is not an adequate target, okay? If we wanted to really be cost effective in our methods as a terrorist organization, what we would do is we would go after either economic targets or resource targets, right? Some examples of which: tourism targets. In the first mission, if some of you will remember, what we did was we targeted a monument that was being erected for the Advent, right? And it was bringing crowds and crowds of people. And we destroyed it. What that does is it kills tourism locally in the area, which is a drain on the economy, which hurts our enemy, the Advent, even more. And it's the same tactic is used in real life. Resource targets are also another big hit. Now, we haven't done one in this game yet, but I'm sure that there's a potential for us to do such a thing. So the choice of target, resource targets such as energy plants or nuclear, a dam, coal-fired power plants, right? Or it can be spots where energy transfer happens, like an energy substation or something like that can be an attack. An oil pipeline. Even though maybe the death toll will be relatively small, the impact it will have on your enemy as a whole will be much greater. Oh, you can see them. Kyle probably has a really good shot on them. Oh, he can take one of these out like instantly. Okay, we're not going to do that quite yet. However, this kind of gets us into our last method of force multiplier, and that is psychology. Okay, now generally, when it comes to psychology, it sort of plays the methods that you use, right? Now, last video, you can watch it up there, we talked about use of the media by terrorist organizations, and that is a major kind of psychological impact, right? If any of you have ever seen the movie, it's Eric Bana just being a badass and killing the all of the terrorists. Hulk? Closed circuit? What are you talking about, Trav? Here's the psychological aspect. The psychological impact this shot will have: cause chaos, impose fear on the enemy. Ambush. Let's do it. He now doesn't know that we're here, right? We can strike from anywhere. Oh, the Eric Bana film, Munich. That's the name of it. In the film Munich, right? This is an example of the psychological warfare aspect, right? There's this scene where Eric Bana is told by like his handler that I don't want to read about people quietly dying or people dying in accidents. I want to read of bombs. And because the idea is the fear factor is more important than the target that is being hit, right? It's not just that the target's being hit, it's that we can hit at any time, right? So the psychological warfare aspect, right? The suicide bomber is one of those tools that is used. 51% chance. You can do it. I believe in you. Arena is my worst shot. Arena misses all of her shots all of the time. We have to remove this guy. Just because. It's at least taken somebody off the battlefield. Right? Those bombs, and now you've been revealed. You were so weak, and he's running. God damn it. Alright, now we have to go find him. I see what you did, Arena. You could have killed him. But no. You needed to, like, let him live. There's the objective, yes. Oh, and there he is. He's right there. So we have to protect that from attack, I'm assuming. The suicide bomber has a psychological effect. It's not just that it causes damage. It's the fact that anybody walking in a crowd can be a weapon, which is horrifying. It's a horrifying concept, and that's why the suicide bomber is so effective for terrorist organizations. Can you make up for 50-50 chance? I don't know why I keep bringing her. Can Guile save the day? Guile saves the day all the time. So the psychological aspect is the last force multiplier. We've executed that, I think, perfectly. Not perfectly, because if it wasn't for fucking Irina over here, let's do it. This is just a shotgun, though. I don't know if I'd be able to. 29, 51. Oh, okay. So, yeah. Riot. Wow. Blasted through the wall. So finally, let's have a brief discussion about gender. When it comes to gender in terrorist organizations, we're going to take a chance. Take a chance, take a chance, take a chance.
If you change your mind,
Take a chance, take a chance. Take a chance, take a chance, take a chance. Take a chance, take a chance, take a chance. Take a chance, take a chance, take a chance. Take a chance, take a chance, take a chance. Take a chance, take a chance, take a chance. Take a chance, take a chance, take a chance. Take a chance, take a chance. Gender. Primarily talking about women in terrorist groups, right? There seems to be a stereotype that, well, women can't be combatants. If you look at our squad group, we have 1, 2 with us. Now, Irina hasn't really proven herself well, but that is not to say that, you know, women can't be terrorists, because they absolutely can. Oh, see, and she, when it counts, in the clutch. When it comes to women in terrorist groups, we did it. Women can be terrorists just like men can. However, there is one caveat to that, and that depends upon the terrorist organization that they join. All right, there are 2 types. When talking about this, we're going to separate them out. There's many types of terrorist organizations, but there's 2 groups that we're going to primarily focus on for this discussion. Domestic and international. Domestic groups focus on small, usually focus on in one country, one area, and international go worldwide. And the difference being is that domestic usually focuses on usually progressive social movements, whereas the international groups are usually more conservative or religion-based. Women in more progressive movements have a greater role, right? They do participate in combat. They do go out and form missions, and play every role. They take leadership roles in those organizations. But in the more conservative religious groups, there are more women than probably some would like to think that work in these groups, but they provide more of a support role. The moving of resources, the active on the back lines, as opposed to on the front lines. However, female presence in these conservative groups actually provides a stabilizing effect on those groups. Whereas it would kind of be chaotic and lawless and without direction. Women provide that direction and that focus to these conservative groups. So they're actually kind of necessary, even though they take a back seat, because the ideology in those conservative groups is that women's role is different. That being said, using women in a terrorist organization, especially as a combatant, has a psychological effect. And women, in and of themselves, are force multipliers because the effect that they have is much greater than if a man attacks. Because if a woman attaches herself to a movement, clearly that movement means business, and that movement attracts supporters. And there's this kind of like old world mentality. It's like, what? A woman has done this? Oh my God, what have they done? Kind of thing, right? Women can be terrorists just like men, but arguably they have a greater impact than men do. So, you know, hashtag feminism. That's going to be our topic for this week. If you enjoy this kind of conversation that we're having while playing XCOM 2, talking about terrorism and these in-depth conversations, please consider liking, subscribing, and making sure notifications are turned on so you don't miss a beat. We record these lectures every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over at twitch.tv/FPSCRA. But for now, I have been your Professor FPSCRA. Class dismissed.